Hey guys, Matt Mollahan fishing here. Let's go fish. This time the ass flipping land. Oh, there's one. Positive people, positive situations, positive things. What happens when you're positive? Hey guys, I want to talk about a little something here after an issue I had this past weekend. And it's an issue that goes around. You hear about it all the time. Let's talk about proper boat etiquette while you're on the water, fishing a tournament, or just fishing in general. So, rule of thumb, people have different opinions on this, but pretty standard across the board here. If you're fishing a tournament, or you're fishing an area, you're approaching an area, you don't set your boat down within 50 yards of another boat that is fishing a particular area. So, if a boat is power pole down or positioned in one area, let's say a boat is fishing a dock, because this is a very similar situation that I ran into. Say a boat's fishing a dock. They're planted in front of that dock. Obviously, you don't want to go to the next dock and park your boat and start fishing. You'd be cutting that person off. That would not be proper boat etiquette. That would just make you a scumbag. Now, let's say that person's fishing the dock, but there's a point a couple hundred yards behind them. That point is fair game, plain and simple. So if that boat is fishing a dock 200 yards in another direction, back facing to you, facing the other direction, like they're heading down the bank going one way, and you have a point back here behind you, whether they fished it or not doesn't matter. It looks like they already passed it up. They gave up the point. They're a couple hundred yards down the lake. They're fishing a boat dock. That point is fair game. That point is fair game. So whether you're working a certain area or not, it doesn't really matter. So if you're that boat fishing the dock, you've already fished that point, you're a couple hundred yards down the bank, heading another direction. The proper thing to do is to allow that person or people to fish that point. You don't own that point. You don't own the lake, right? So proper boat etiquette would not be to turn your boat around after you see somebody catch a fish off that point and come up and start fishing that point as well, and then decide to be an even bigger asshole and cuss you out because you're fishing that point. So again, let's keep things very simple. 50 yards is the general rule of thumb. 50 yards, right? Now, there's certain ways that you might want to, if somebody's going down the bank, and they're going work in the back of a pocket or something, you don't necessarily want to cut them off and just run straight to the back of a pocket. They're heading in that direction, and that's where they're going. Unless we're talking about, again, a couple hundred yards, and you're giving them enough room to continue working down the bank or whatever you're doing. You don't want to just cut them off 50 or I give it 100 yards. So proper boat etiquette is very simple. It's called respect. Now, on the flip side, just because you fished a spot previously and you've worked away from that spot going another direction, doesn't mean that you still own that spot and that nobody else can fish it. Just to be clear on that. So when it comes to proper boat etiquette and it comes to fishing a tournament, respect is the key word. Plain and simple. And if something happens where, maybe somebody didn't notice you. I've had that happen before. I pulled up in a spot, didn't see somebody coming. Hey, listen, real simple. Hey, fella, I was right here. We're working our way around there. Do you mind come up? Hey, man, sorry, I didn't see you. No problem. And move on to the next one. Things happen. It's okay. Stuff like that. Sometimes people don't pay attention. It is what it is. But just blatant disrespect is not going to be tolerated by me. I can tell you that. If I disrespect somebody out on the water, I expect them to call me on it. It's not something that I would ever intentionally do, and it's not something that I would ever expect anybody else to intentionally do, but it does happen because I hear about it all the time. So, but again, be a man, call somebody on it, and they should show you the respect of, look, I understand I did the wrong thing. Let me move on out, or let me move away. I apologize. That's what a man does. A man doesn't work down a bank, go park himself in front of a boat dock, after he's already passed a point, 200 yards behind him, another boat pulls up on the point to fish the point, catches a fish off of it, you abruptly turn your boat around, start working back up the other direction towards the point, and then start making casts on the same point the other boat is also fishing, and then cuss them out because they're fishing a point and you saw them catch a fish and you're probably struggling. You're probably not catching any fish. You're probably having a bad day and you want to take it out on somebody else. That makes you a scumbag. You're a scumbag, a disrespectful scumbag. And I'll call you on it every single time, every time. And I don't care if you disagree. I don't care if you don't like what I have to say. Don't listen to it. Block me. I don't care. But this is real simple rules of the game. Now, again, as men, we should all be able to discuss it. If there's an issue or something that's borderline, let's talk about it like men. But don't call somebody outside of their name over some immature, childish stuff that could have been simply handled like like two grown men should have handled it. So, anyways, proper boat etiquette. 50 yards is a general rule of thumb. 50. That's it. 50 yards of somebody who's power poled down or positioned, stationary, fishing a certain spot, area, point, dock, whatever. 50 yards is a general rule of thumb. So, again, if somebody's working down a bank and they're working a stretch of docks, don't go cut them off 2 or 3 docks down. Give them that stretch. Give them that pocket, especially if it's a small pocket. Just give it up. Don't be disrespectful. But at the same time, especially if you're going to fish behind someone that's already fished an area, fair game, 100% fair game. And the 50-yard rule of thumb comes into play. If somebody's working down a bank and they pass a point that you wanted to fish and they're working down the other direction, I don't care if it's 20, 30 yards. They pass it up. They left that area. They're done with it. And you're coming in to fish behind them. Fair game, 100%. So either way, try to use some common sense. Try to be respectful of others on the water. And, let's all try to get along. And if you got an issue, let's handle it like a man. Don't handle it like a coward. Don't call somebody outside of their name, act like Billy Badass on the boat, and then don't even show up at the boat ramp. That's all I'm going to say about that. So we'll catch you next time.